Hi there, person on the internet. I'm Tony Bacigalupo. I run a network called New Work Cities where we help people build co-working spaces. And I want to talk about the story that isn't being told of the impact that co-working spaces are having on their local economies and on the world's relationship with work in general. So, first of all, let's establish something about co-working. Co-working is so much more than just renting desks to people, and we hear that talked about a lot, and in a lot of cases it is just kind of marketing talk. But I've experienced this having run a space for about 8 years, and having helped so many other people and heard so many stories of people who have been affected by being a part of a co-working community. I can tell you that the impact that co-working spaces are having is absolutely astounding, and it is a story that is not being told nearly enough. So let's get specific about some of the ways that co-working spaces affect the world around them. So for one, entrepreneurship is scary. Working for yourself, starting a business, there are a million things that you have to figure out when you're starting a business that are scary. They're hard, and if you're just getting started, it can be extremely intimidating. When you are able to go to a place where there are other people who are not super duper invincible startup founders necessarily, right? They're people, and you can get to know them and be friends with them, and you can learn from them, and you can see that they are on their journey as well, and some of them have just gotten started, and some of them can tell you about the experiences they had when they were just getting started. All of this becomes a lot less scary and a lot more accessible, and you're able to get access to answers to the questions that you have as you go. Number one, it fosters entrepreneurship, simply by making it less scary. That's one. And then two, by giving people access to other people who can help them, either just by providing advice or by actually directly providing services. And this is where we get into a third impact, which is that people hire each other in co-working spaces. In my co-working space that I ran, we had, for example, a CPA who was a very lovely woman who specialized in small business and startups, and she killed it. She made so much business, and she was doing great. She was great, right? Gina's awesome. And we had a photographer. Photographer did photography for her friends in the space. We had a physical therapist who worked with so many members in our space, formally and informally. We had a app developer who worked with other app developers. We had so many startups and small businesses and consultancies that formed and hired developers in our space, even teams that were formed out of what happened in the space. We're going to get to that more in a moment. So many people who hire each other formally and informally to help each other with their businesses, which generates revenue for them, and also, again, helps them to grow their own businesses. So that's another impact. In terms of the startups, which I just mentioned, if you have people who meet when they're not currently running a startup, then you've got people who are talented, who are getting together. Maybe they've got their own consultancies, maybe they're telecommuting, working for a larger company, whatever it is. But now you've got them in a room where, with the right culture and with the right kinds of programming, they're really not just sitting there working, but they're getting to know each other better. They're getting to learn a little bit about each other's passions and about each other's ideas and interests. And they're in an environment where those ideas can start to form into a startup. This is really where some terrific startups can be formed. In my space alone, we've seen a number of terrifically successful startups emerge. And that's just one space. There are thousands of co-working spaces all over the world now. And so that ends up obviously generating a lot of revenue, generating jobs, all kinds of good things. In certain cases, a startup puts a smaller city on the map in terms of creating an ecosystem and creating a perception that this is a city where startups can emerge. And so from the larger regional economic development perspective, having successful businesses and visible businesses emerging from your region can be a tremendous boost to the region in terms of the perception and the brand of that city as a place that successful startups can emerge from. And that kind of leads us into some of the impact that happens on a regional level. When we look at a city and what a co-working space contributes to it, we look at how fostering the entrepreneurial ecosystem, not just on the hockey stick, high growth tech startup level, but on the small and medium business and even the freelance level, all of these people benefit from a co-working space. And all of these people are needed for a good economy. And so the fact that a good co-working space fosters more and more of this at every level is benefiting a city in terms of tax revenue, in terms of job creation, in terms of people feeling secure and then enjoying the work that they're doing, which then leads to them maybe establishing themselves in that region, buying a home, growing their business, hiring people, things like that. So there's a lot of direct economic effect that's happening, and I would argue indirect economic effect as well. Now we can look at kind of the halo effect that's created by getting people out of their homes into a particular area and the businesses that are affected by that. If you run events in your space, then you're going to be spending money, or the people who run the events are going to be spending money on food and drink. So the local purveyors of food and drink that you work with are going to benefit from it. When we moved into our space on Broadway in New York, in Manhattan, we hosted one of the first startup weekends in New York City, and we had a huge number of people. We had like 150 people in our space, and we placed a huge order for pizza at the pizza place just down the street, this spectacular pizza place, Salugi's, so good. And we ordered like 43 pies. And when the delivery came, the owner was the first one in the door carrying the first set of boxes, and he put the boxes down and he insisted on meeting us because we had placed the largest order that they'd ever gotten. And we had a relationship with that pizza store owner for the entirety of our tenure at that location. We had a standing discount, and they loved us, and we loved them because their pizza was great, and they gave us a good deal on the pizzas. And in some cases, they helped us out of a pinch when we needed some stuff and we ran out of materials, whatever, and they were there for us. That was just one business. And if you think about coffee, if you think about other food products, other supplies that you buy, and that's just for event programming, the effect that you can have on the businesses around you is tremendous. And it's one that you should be taking advantage of. So, if you're running a space, if you're thinking of running a space, having a relationship with the other local business owners is hugely valuable. And this is something that I can help you with as well. We have kind of an exercise that we take people through to map out these people and develop priorities of who to talk to and how to develop those relationships. And then the members themselves spend a whole lot of money on food and drink in your area. In New York, especially, we're such a food takeout kind of driven culture, but the members in our space spent a lot of money on food and drink in the area. And then if you have outings where you and your members go out and do events in other spaces, in bars or in restaurants, things like that, generates a lot of direct economic impact. What else? There's so much more. Okay. So let's talk about other impacts that are not financial. Thinking about, for example, here in New York, we have all kinds of issues with transit. There's issues where like the L train is going down and the whole swath of Brooklyn is going to be cut off basically from Manhattan, and there's this huge commute problem. If companies could work with co-working spaces to institute new remote working policies, perhaps with the assistance of the city, then we could actually alleviate the need for transit in places where it's just badly overloaded. So in the case of this L train issue, if we could make a push to get more people working from home, more people working from co-working spaces local to that area, then it decreases the pressure on overburdened transit infrastructure. Same goes for roads and highways. If we can get people to go to local co-working spaces instead of to the centralized headquarters, then it's less people traveling long distances, which is easier on the transit infrastructure. It makes things easier on the businesses, and it makes things easier for the employee or the worker who is now dealing with a much shorter commute. So many benefits to that. We can talk about power consumption. where in areas where you have brownouts, where you have issues with where the spaces where basically like the temperature is really hot, and you have issues with brownouts where the power grid can't keep up with the fact that so many people are air conditioning their homes. If a lot of people are working from home and air conditioning their homes, it's costing a lot of money, first of all, for each of those people to air condition their homes. That has environmental impact, but it also is hitting the power grid. So if we can get more people to work in one space where there's one air conditioner that can keep everybody cool, and we can let the individual homes be less cool during that time, it helps reduce the load on power. So many other benefits. In addition to all these things, the event programming that happens in your space, if you are home to meetup groups or formal classroom training, things like that, the effects of that are amplified even further. Every meetup that happens where people gather and they learn things, they meet each other, tremendous impact that comes from that. If you are home to formal coding school and educational programming, if that programming is geared towards audiences that are specific groups that are underserved, then you're having that much more impact on reducing inequality and creating opportunity for people for whom that opportunity perhaps has been insufficient. So there's so much more that can be done beyond that in terms of working with other organizations to make your space a vehicle for all kinds of terrific causes. Indy Hall in Philadelphia runs a blood drive multiple times a year, and that blood drive has tremendous effects on the stock of blood available to people who need transfusions in the area. So many other health-related things that can be done in that realm. And so all of this is happening. All this is happening in thousands of co-working spaces all over the world right now, and so little of it is being talked about, so little of it is being documented properly, but those stories are happening. And if you are thinking about starting a co-working space, if you're running one, I would say go for it, do it, make it happen, because it's going to have this impact and more than I could ever describe to you on your region, and you can be a part of helping to make that happen. So what I do is I help people do these things. I help people think about how to build a space, how to develop the right strategy, and how to operate things better, how to do it profitably, and how to do it in a way that really maximizes the impact, which I think is the best possible way to run a business. So if you want to learn more about the services that I have, I've got all kinds of materials, free and paid, available to you to help you out. And that's all on my company site. New Work Cities is the name of the company, and you can find that at nwc.co. That's nwc.co, New Work Cities. Check out the website and find out more about how I can help you build a space that's going to help a heck of a lot of people and make the world a better place. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Catch you later. Bye.